My final amendment. I thank you so very much. And again, let me offer appreciation to Mr. Simpson, Ms. Capter, and let me frame my amendment.
Is the gentlelady offering an amendment?
I'm so sorry. I'm offering amendment number 361. I was rushing to make this my last one. Number 361. Thank you. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
I have an amendment at the desk. Thank you.
Amendment offered by Ms. Jackson Lee of Texas. At the end of the bill before the short title, insert the following section. The amounts otherwise provided by this act are revised by reducing the amount made available for Corps of Engineers civil construction and increasing the amount made available for the same account by $100 million.
Pursuant to House Resolution 743, the gentlelady from Texas and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Texas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My previous amendment dealt with the investigations account, which is the predecessor to the construction account. Before I begin the discussion, let me say that I took to the floor of the House in May after the floods occurred in Houston and had a moment of silence for the 8 people that died in those floods. Mr. Chairman, this was not a hurricane, it was not a tornado. It was hard rains that caused individuals in their cars to drown. Very, very tragic. Some going to work, some nurses, some students drowning in their cars. This is what it looked like in my district, and looked like the same way in 2015 and again in 2016. And so the construction account, which I want to thank Ms. Captain, Mr. Simpson, has $1.94 billion in that account. And I believe the construction account is very important to members across the nation, but certainly it's important to the Houston Harris County region with other counties around. As the federal agency that collects and studies basic information pertaining to river and harbor, flood and storm damage, shore protection, this is important construction money that will be vital to prevent this kind of catastrophe. First a study, then a construction. The areas that may be impacted by the Army Corps resources may be impacted include Sims Bayou, Greens Bayou, Braves Bayou, White Oak Bayou, Hunting Bayou, and Clear Creek Bayou. These are the areas that spilt over and caused the enormous damage. On April 15, 2016, an estimated 240 billion gallons of water fell in the Houston area over a 12-hour period, which resulted in several areas exceeding the 100 to 500-year flood event. That's why these construction dollars are so important. The areas that experienced these historic rainfalls were west of I-45, north of I-10, and Greens Bayou, my congressional district, among others. Finally, during the May 2015 Houston flood, 3,000 homes were flooded. 8 people died during the April 16 Houston flood. 5,400 homes were flooded, and again, 8 deaths recorded. My previous numbers were April 15, 2016 was when they had this constant rain, 240 billion gallons. The economic damage caused by the 2015 Houston flood is estimated at $3 billion. So this construction account is so very important. I ask my colleagues to support the Jackson Lee amendment, which is the broader view of how these dollars can be utilized to save lives, and in particular in regions that I happen to live in the Houston Harris County area. With that, I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Who seeks time in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, I seek time in opposition.
2016 was when they had this constant rain, 240 billion gallons. The economic damage caused by the 2015 Houston flood is estimated at $3 billion. So this construction account is so very important. I ask my colleagues to support the Jackson Lee amendment, which is the broader view of how these dollars can be utilized to save lives, and in particular in regions that I happen to live in the Houston Harris County area. With that, I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Who seeks time in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, I seek time in opposition.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from
Although
Idaho.
I do not oppose the amendment.
Without objection, the gentleman is
First, let me
recognized.
assure my colleague that I understand the issue prompting this amendment, seeing our communities flood and our constituents struggling to deal with the aftermath of flooding, especially when there are projects already planned to prevent such flooding, can be extremely frustrating. That is why the energy and water bills over the past several years have included significant funding above the budget requests for the Corps of Engineers Flood and Storm Damage Reduction Mission. In fact, the fiscal year 2017 energy and water bill more than doubles the budget requested from the administration for construction of these projects. It is an increase of 113% or $457 million. More specifically, the bill includes $392 million in additional funding for which the Houston area projects could compete. That amount is $82 million more than the amount provided in fiscal year 2016 Act. Additionally, the committee report directs the Corps to consider the severity of risk of flooding or the frequency with which an area has experienced flooding when deciding how to allocate the additional funding provided. The bill provides strong support for addressing flood risk. Because the amendment does not actually change funding levels and so does not upset the balance of priorities within this bill, I will not oppose this amendment. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Texas.
Again, may I thank Mr. Simpson and Mr. Kaptur. Mr. Simpson for recounting that information, Ms. Kaptur for the leadership that she has given and the understanding of the plight that we are in. Flood control is critical to dams and harbors, and it's most critical of all as infrastructure. That is what the construction funding will do. We understand that this now will give us the opportunity for long overdue projects that are dealing with the major flooding, and the previous amendment giving us a work plan through the Army Corps of Engineers will again be instructive and helpful to saving lives and reducing the enormity of loss and the enormity of damage that has been caused to these areas. With that, I ask for support of the Jackson Lee amendment.
Gentlelady yields
yield
back. Gentlelady yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.